and then if I understand correctly, renown is also, you're a little bit like in Atlantis. It's the thing that tells you how many hero points you get. It's
yes.
the
Well, yeah.
determinant of the hero points. Right.
Well, yeah. That and your ability level when you make your character.
That's
and stuff
right.
like
Right.
that.
Okay. But so go ahead.
It's basically the renown will tell you how much you can actually, because as you go up,
That's
with
right.
renown,
That's right. Your level sets the hero points, but the renown sets how much you can throw.
Right. So it's like
yeah.
That's one of the conceits I came up with in a superhero game. It's like, why is Superman or why does Batman get to be as powerful as he is? It's like, well, it's not because he's physically powerful. He just has access to way more hero points. It's like
it's basically the power of plot, right? It's your author favoritism at work. There is what you got.
Yes, exactly. Right. True.
So which is fine. So a few things. I mean, we can talk more about that because I'm all about how my big criticism of DC Heroes is that the meta plot, the meta points, the hero points overwhelm the resolution system.
Right.
And so we can talk more about that, or that's a matter of playtesting and just seeing how it feels when it plays.
Yeah, one of these days I gotta get you to play it.
Well, that's what our third session is going to be. That's my plan.
Right. Okay. Well,
this was the last of sort of my vex Jerry with fucking abstract, difficult,
right.
fancy questions and structural questions.
Yeah.
This reached the end of my thoughts on that. So.
No, trust me. I just sit here and I'll take notes.
Yeah.
And then later on, as I sit here, I'm like, okay, how do I?
Right.
Because it does it. Basically, you tasking me here, or confronting me.
Right.
It's like, one way you can go is just like, you know what, you're full of shit, man. You don't understand my vision. But it's like, well, okay, let's figure this out, because when I'm not there running the game, someone else is going to have to replicate the things that I'm putting here, and it's got to be able to be consumed by them.
Well, let's also be blunt. Unlike your other games, this one was born in sin, which is to say, just to generate IP. And so therefore, it's no surprise that it keeps eluding you as design. It's got to have a reason to live. It's got to have a reason to live in your mind, and and that's what we're kind of working with, is finding that reason to live. And then all of a sudden, all these design questions sort of pop into place for you, I think.
Yeah, we definitely need to play this.
Well, that's the idea for sure. Because there's the next thing we have to discuss is what I call bounce, and it is what, which basically says, what's the point of your randomizing factors in the game? What's the point of rolling dice in this game? What's the point? What does that do? And I'm a huge fan of such components in all the myriad ways that they can work. But I claim that many role-playing game designs do not know why they have that randomizing factor there, except that, well, you just do that.
Right, that other games have it.
Yeah, that makes a role-playing game. You got to roll your skills, right? And so we have to think about what it is actually providing into the experience of play that's relevant to how things change. Because if those roles don't tie somehow, either collectively for a session or in some other way, if they don't tie into the increase in power of our pantheon, and the increase and decreases in renown and stuff like that, then what are they doing there? So let's take a look at all the things we do during play that have randomized components. I mean, obviously, and that's why I asked you, how do I hit, and stuff like that. So we've got any number of those things, different roles. Now, here's the thing that's the easiest to understand. The immediate situation, the results of those roles will have some consequences that we might care about a lot. I don't give a shit about that bank getting robbed or not, but I do care about whether, that NPC gets waxed or not. I care about that. I don't want her to get killed. Right. Or something like that. But there's something important fictionally that is going to occur due to succeeded and failed rolls. So far, so good, right? That's the easy one. And then there's another kind, which is that in some way, it could be collectively across a session, or it could be individualized per roll in some way, but renown's going to go up and down. And our pantheon, for whatever reason, never mind the mechanics, but in some way, our pantheon is going to get more powerful.
Right.
Right. So here's my point. How do the randomized factors of play actually have an impact on those things? I mean, in other words, is the death or the life of that NPC just at the GM's whim no matter what happens?
Right.
I mean, I can roll to hit the villain and stuff, but it's ultimately up to the GM to say whether she falls off the cliff or not.
Right.
And so basically all that rolling is just window dressing for whenever the GM decides that he's had enough and tells me whether she's saved or not. Right?
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I completely agree. We want our words and our dice and stuff and the way those work in tandem, we want them to actually have those fictional outcomes in some way we can identify. Right?
Yep.
Right. So I mean that's why we have the fucking things, and it seems so obvious, except unfortunately, as we know, there are plenty of games when the reverse is true.
Yeah,
right. So
that's why I say it's a bummer.
Like
when you've done all of this stuff and you're like, that's it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could have just told me in the beginning that, I'd save her in time. But anyway, so so then the whole thing next is, what about those larger points? I mean, the renown points going up and down per person. And then also the pantheon beefing up. I can't remember if that's just like a collective of all of us, getting power levels higher or something. But whatever it is, I don't care. Some way. Right. And so anyway, the pantheon's going to be going up itself. So we become more important as a thing. And the cool thing about the renown, of course, we got that social glue happening with group followings and stuff like that happening. We've also got how those agenda points go up, which are the GM's signaling device for, what to do with this institution, right? So I'm interested in how the randomized the randomized input into play and the verbal input of what you say you're doing, what you're trying to do, and how the outcomes are narrated. I'm interested in how that turns into those points of renown and pantheon.
Right.
I'm interested in that. So those are, and what I'm saying is, we don't want to disconnect our randomizations and our procedures of play from that. I mean, it's kind of interesting because there are ways to disconnect it. The way my Champions Now disconnects it. Everybody gets two points at the end of a session if it's kind of small or the confrontation isn't that a big deal. If it's a longer session and or a more, biggie confrontation, then you get 4 each. Done. There's no nuance. None.
Right.
That's it. That's the only way you get points. There's no other way. You don't get extra points for this or anything. And it's not tied to success or failure or anything.
Right.
And that's because I'm emulating a particular kind of comic for which, and also plays a big role in what the points actually are. In Champions Now, the points are a particular device for play. And I want it to be a steady, solid input of it. It's just flowing in. More points are in play. More points are in play. More points are in play. That steady increase is a big part of how the game is done. Your game is different. Your game
is different.
Yeah, your game has a different philosophy, which is that we want the impact on the pantheon, the impact on the institutions, the impact on renown. We want to trace that to what happened.
Right.
And that's, so I'm seeing that difference between those two games. And you can either make that hideously painful or you can make it fun.
Right. Yes.
So,
No, that definitely needs a rework, because even like I'll answer questions online about Atlantis or Hellas, and I shouldn't have put this chart in here, but I put a chart in there with suggested ways that you would get, renown or glory or whatever. But then people get hung up on it. Like, how many games for this? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. How many games would you like it to be?
Yeah.
And this is just giving you an idea. This is not the Bible on how to get these points. You do not have to do these things.
Jerry shouts at the crowd again, "I'm not the Messiah."
Yes, exactly. It's like, dude, you don't have to do these things. It's like, these are just suggestions.
We don't have to do these things. They're just suggestions, shouts the crowd in response. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's and so like for this game, I had that chart in there somewhere, but after like these conversations, I was like, I got to take that out because people will zero in on this and forget all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And just, but then again, people, they will fixate on different stuff in your game.
Well, no, that's all true. It's kind of interesting in this case that with any luck, the different aspects of it that people bring forward will be okay.
Right. And that's what you want. You want those happy accidents or happy interpretations. But then there are people who will just focus and you're like, no. Don't, that is, that's an aspect, but that is not what this is about. And they will, and you're like, okay. And then you start, I kind of feel bad for their players because their players are like, well, can't I just do this and get it? And they're like, says right here. And you're just like, oh, you just,
we'll that moves us into the whole how to present the game question, which is totally different.
Yes.
So, all right, I got to go. Thank you so much, Jerry. I hope this was fun.
Thanks, man. Yeah. No, it was fun. It was fun just being a human for like an hour or two.
Also, I really liked the rolls that I made, so I am going to keep my cosmic manipulation guys. So you're not
right. No, you know what? It's funny because I wrote down your rolls right here on the different charts. So because I'm actually yesterday I was working on a worksheet that you would do all this stuff on, so you could keep track of everything that you did before you made your character.